When my mother called to invite me to a fancy dinner celebrating my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, I felt a warmth spreading through my chest. It had been 3 years since our entire family gathered in one place. I imagined laughter, shared memories, and reconnecting with siblings I had grown distant from. I booked my flight immediately, bought new clothes, and prepared a heartfelt gift. But when I arrived at that elegant restaurant and heard where I was supposed to sit, I realized this dinner was never meant for me. Before I begin this story, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your city and country in the comments below. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, like your accomplishments meant nothing because you did not fit their definition of success, this story will resonate with you. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Now let me take you back to the moment everything changed. My name is Naomi, and at 29 years old I consider myself a successful person by most standards. I work as a software engineer at a well-known tech company in Seattle, earning a comfortable 6-figure salary. I own my own apartment, drive a reliable car, and have built a life I am genuinely proud of. I did everything right. I studied hard, graduated with honors, landed a great job, and climbed the corporate ladder through dedication and long hours. But in my family's eyes, none of that matters, because I am not married. Let me tell you about my siblings. My older brother Marcus is 35 years old, a lawyer at a prestigious firm in our hometown of Columbus, Ohio. He married his college sweetheart Laura 8 years ago, and they have 2 children together. Brandon is 7 and Sophie is 5. Marcus has always been the golden child, the one my parents held up as the example of what success looks like. Then there is my sister Denise, 33 years old and a surgeon at the local hospital. She married Kevin, an accountant, 5 years ago. They have a 3-year-old daughter named Emma. Denise followed the path my parents approved of. Medical school, respectable husband, beautiful child. My youngest sibling is Tiffany, 26 years old and a kindergarten teacher. She married Derek, a financial analyst, just 6 months before this story takes place. Even though she is younger than me by 3 years, she somehow leapfrogged over me in my parents' hierarchy of approval simply because she found a husband. And then there is me, the unmarried one. The one who chose career over family according to my mother. The one who is still figuring things out according to my father. Never mind that I have figured out plenty. Never mind that I am financially independent, emotionally stable, and genuinely happy with my life. In their eyes, I am incomplete. My relationship with my family has always been complicated. I love them, but there has always been this invisible wall between us. I call my mother every Sunday, send gifts for birthdays and holidays, and try to visit at least twice a year, but every conversation eventually circles back to the same questions. Are you seeing anyone? When are you going to settle down? You are not getting any younger, you know. I learned to deflect these questions with humor and subject changes, but deep down each one left a small wound that never fully healed. When my mother called that Thursday afternoon, her voice was bubbling with excitement. She told me about the anniversary dinner, how my father had reserved a private room at the Sterling House, the most exclusive French restaurant in Columbus. She described the menu, the decorations, how all my siblings had already confirmed their attendance. I want the whole family there, she said. It would mean so much to your father and me. Something in her tone made me hopeful. Maybe this was a turning point. Maybe they were finally ready to accept me as I am, to celebrate me alongside my siblings without the usual comparisons and subtle jabs. I told her I would be there. I hung up and immediately opened my laptop to book a flight. I had plans that weekend with friends in Seattle, a hiking trip we had been organizing for months. I canceled without hesitation. Family comes first, I told myself. Over the next few days, I threw myself into preparation. I bought a new charcoal gray suit from a high-end department store. I spent almost $400 on a bottle of vintage French wine, a 1995 Bordeaux that I knew my father would appreciate. I also created a photo album by hand, collecting pictures from my childhood, my parents' wedding, family vacations, and holidays. I spent hours arranging them chronologically, writing captions beneath each one. This gift was my heart on paper, a reminder of our shared history, our bond as a family. The morning of my flight, I woke up early and packed carefully. I ironed my new suit, polished my shoes, and double-checked that I had everything. On the plane from Seattle to Columbus, I gazed out the window at the clouds below and let myself remember the good times. Summer barbecues in our backyard. Christmas mornings gathered around the tree. My father teaching me to ride a bike, my mother helping me with homework. We had been happy once. We had been close. I wanted to believe we could find that again. I made a silent promise to myself during that flight. I would be present, open, and positive. I would not let old resentments color this reunion. I would meet my family with love and hope. If only I had known what was waiting for me. I arrived at the Sterling House at exactly 7 in the evening. The restaurant occupied a restored Victorian mansion on the outskirts of downtown Columbus. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. The walls were painted a deep burgundy adorned with oil paintings in gilded frames. Waiters in crisp black and white uniforms moved silently between tables, their movements precise and practiced. My parents were already there when I walked in. My mother wore a navy blue dress with pearl earrings, her silver hair styled elegantly. My father looked distinguished in his dark suit, his posture straight despite his 67 years. I approached them with my gifts in hand, a smile on my face. "Happy anniversary," I said, handing over the wine and the photo album. My mother accepted them with a brief thank you. She barely glanced at the album before setting it aside on a nearby table. My father nodded his acknowledgement, but his attention was already drifting toward the entrance, watching for my siblings. I stood there for a moment, waiting for something more. A hug, perhaps, a comment about how good it was to see me, but neither came. Marcus arrived next with Laura and their children. He wore confidence like a second skin, shaking hands with my father and kissing my mother on the cheek. Laura looked elegant in a red dress, herding Brandon and Sophie toward us. The children were well-behaved but restless, as children tend to be in formal settings. Denise and Kevin followed shortly after, with little Emma clinging to her mother's hand. Denise had clearly come straight from the hospital. There were still traces of fatigue around her eyes, but she smiled brightly as she greeted our parents. Tiffany and Derek were the last to arrive. As newlyweds, they still had that glow about them, constantly touching and exchanging private smiles. My mother embraced Tiffany warmly, commenting on how beautiful she looked, how lucky Derek was to have her. I watched these greetings from the periphery. Nobody asked about my flight or my job or my life in Seattle. I was there, but I was not really seen. A hostess in a black dress led our party to a private room at the back of the restaurant. The room was even more impressive than the main dining area. A fireplace crackled in one corner. French doors opened onto a small garden lit by string lights. And in the center of the room stood 2 tables. One was long and rectangular, draped in white linen with fine china place settings for 10. The other was smaller, round, set up in the corner with colorful plastic cups and smaller chairs. My mother began directing everyone to their seats with the authority of a general commanding troops. She guided my father to the head of the main table, then positioned herself beside him. Marcus and Laura took their places on one side. Denise and Kevin sat across from them. Tiffany and Derek filled the remaining adult seats. 10 chairs, 10 place settings, and all of them occupied. I was still standing, gift bags in my hands, when my mother turned to me. "Naomi," she said, her voice casual, "you will sit at that table with the children." She gestured toward the smaller table where Brandon, Sophie, and Emma were already being corralled by Laura. I blinked. I must have misheard her. "Excuse me," I said. "The main table is for couples," she explained, as if this were the most logical thing in the world. "You do not have a spouse, so it makes sense for you to sit with the little ones. You can keep an eye on them for us." I looked at the kids' table. It was positioned in the corner, away from the main conversation. The chairs were child-sized. The place settings included sippy cups and coloring placemats. I looked back at my siblings. Marcus was suddenly very interested in his menu. Denise adjusted her napkin. Tiffany whispered something to Derek. Not one of them would meet my eyes. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice level, "I am 29 years old. I flew across the country to be here. I am not sitting at the kids' table." My mother's expression hardened. "Naomi, do not make a scene. It is just a seating arrangement. This is not about you." But it was about me. It was entirely about me. I felt the eyes of my family on me, waiting to see if I would comply, as I always had. The good son who never caused trouble. The one who swallowed his hurt and kept smiling. Against every instinct screaming at me to walk away, I went to the children's table. The chair was too small. My knees pressed against the underside of the table. Brandon looked up at me with confusion on his face. "Uncle Naomi, why are you sitting with us? You are old." Out of the mouths of babes. A waiter approached and handed menus to the adults' table. Wine lists were passed around. I heard my father ordering a bottle of champagne to start. Meanwhile, a different server came to our table with a children's menu. The options were chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, or a hot dog with fries. I sat there in my $400 suit, holding a laminated menu with cartoon animals on it. While 15 feet away, my family clinked champagne glasses and laughed at some joke I could not hear. The food arrived. The adults received plates of filet mignon, lobster tail, duck, confit. Their table gleamed with crystal wine glasses and silver cutlery. At my table, plastic plates of chicken nuggets were placed before us. A basket of fries sat in the center alongside a bottle of ketchup. Emma knocked over her juice. Sophie complained that her chicken was too hot. Brandon asked me repeatedly why I did not have kids of my own. Through it all, I could hear snippets of conversation from the main table. My father praising Marcus for winning a big case. My mother gushing over Denise's promotion to head of surgery. Everyone congratulating Tiffany and Derek on their new house purchase. Nobody mentioned me. Not once. I thought about all the times this had happened before. Thanksgiving last year, when I was seated at the far end of the table near the kitchen, included but not really part of the conversation. My mother's birthday, when I sent an expensive designer handbag that was barely acknowledged, while Marcus's modest gift of flowers received endless praise. Tiffany's wedding 6 months ago, where I was not asked to be a groomsman because it might be awkward since I was single. Year after year I had been diminished, overlooked, treated as less than because I had not followed the path they prescribed. But I had always stayed quiet. I had always chosen peace over confrontation. Until tonight. The turning point came during my father's speech. He stood up, champagne glass in hand, and cleared his throat. The room fell silent. Even the children at my table stopped squirming. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," my father began. 40 years of marriage is no small accomplishment, and looking around this table I am filled with pride. He looked at Marcus. "Son, you have built an incredible career and given us 2 wonderful grandchildren. You make us proud every day." He turned to Denise. "Sweetheart, watching you become a surgeon and a mother has been one of the great joys of my life. You are everything we hoped you would be." Then to Tiffany. "And our baby girl, now a married woman with a beautiful future ahead. Derek, welcome to the family. Take care of our daughter." I waited. My hands were clenched under the table, my heart pounding. But my father sat down without ever looking in my direction. Without saying my name. Without acknowledging that I existed. The silence that followed was deafening, at least to me. My mother picked up where he left off. She raised her glass and smiled at the table. "To our wonderful children and their families. And hopefully," she added with a pointed glance toward my corner, "Naomi will find someone special soon so we can be proud of all 4 of our children." There it was. Spoken aloud for everyone to hear. The message could not have been clearer. I was not someone they were proud of. I was a disappointment, an incomplete person, a failure. My siblings chuckled. Marcus smirked into his wine glass. Denise looked away. Tiffany actually laughed. Something inside me broke. Not in a dramatic way. Not with tears or shouting. It was quieter than that, like a rope that had been fraying for years, finally snapping. I looked at the children beside me, innocent and oblivious. I looked at the table of adults who could not even pretend to include me, and I made a decision. I stood up slowly. I straightened my jacket. I leaned down to Brandon, Sophie, and Emma. "I have to go now," I said softly. "You 3 be good, okay?" Brandon tilted his head. "Where are you going, Uncle Naomi?" "Somewhere I should have gone a long time ago," I said. I walked toward the door of the private room. My footsteps were steady. My back was straight. I did not look at my parents or siblings. I did not offer an explanation or wait for permission. I simply left. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside. It was October in Ohio and the temperature had dropped since I arrived. I did not have my coat. I had left it inside. but I did not go back. I called for a car on my phone. While I waited, I stood under the awning of the Sterling house and breathed. In and out. In and out. No one came. The car arrived 7 minutes later. I climbed in and gave the driver the address of a hotel downtown. I had originally planned to stay at my parents' house in my old childhood bedroom. That plan was dead now. As the car pulled away from the restaurant, I watched it shrink in the rearview mirror. The building glowed warmly against the dark sky. Inside, my family was probably still eating their expensive meal, drinking their fine wine, pretending everything was normal. It took them almost 20 minutes to notice I was gone. My phone started buzzing in my pocket. First my mother, then my father, then a cascade of texts from my siblings. Mom, where are you? What happened, Dad? Naomi, come back. You are being dramatic. Marcus, dude, where did you go? Mom is freaking out. Denise, this is really immature. Can you please come back, Tiffany? Way to ruin the dinner. Thanks a lot. I read each message. I did not respond to any of them. At the hotel, I checked into a room on the 8th floor. It was clean and anonymous, with crisp white sheets and a view of the city lights. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone as it continued to buzz with calls and messages. 47 attempts to reach me over the next 2 hours. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I did not feel obligated to answer. I did not feel guilty for putting myself first. I had spent 29 years trying to earn a seat at my family's table. Tonight I finally realized that the seat was never really available to me. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I had not felt in years. I ordered room service for breakfast and sat by the window watching the sun rise over Columbus. My phone was still off. I was not ready to face whatever waited in those messages, but I knew I could not hide forever. I powered on my phone at 9 in the morning. The notifications flooded in. Beyond the texts and missed calls from the night before, there were new messages. My mother had left a voicemail. I pressed play and held the phone to my ear. Naomi, her voice was sharp. You embarrassed us in front of the entire family. Do you have any idea how that looked? Everyone was asking where you went. Your father is furious. I do not understand how you could be so selfish and ungrateful. We invited you to a nice dinner and this is how you repay us. Call me back immediately. I listened to the entire message. Then I deleted it. I sat with my thoughts for a long time. Part of me wanted to call her back and unleash everything I had been holding inside for years, to scream and cry and make her understand how much she had hurt me. But that was not what I needed. That was not who I wanted to be. Instead, I called her with a calm I had carefully cultivated. She answered on the first ring. Naomi, finally. What do you have to say for yourself? I took a breath. Mom, I need you to listen to me without interrupting. Can you do that? Silence. Then, fine. I am 29 years old, I said. I have a good career, my own home, and a life I have built entirely on my own. I am not a child. And I refuse to be treated like one simply because I have not gotten married. She started to speak, but I continued. Last night I was placed at a table with toddlers while my siblings, including one who is 3 years younger than me, sat with the adults. Last night, Dad gave a speech praising everyone except me. And then you announced in front of everyone that you would be proud of me when I find a spouse. As if everything I have accomplished means nothing without a ring on my finger. There was silence on the other end. I am done accepting that treatment, I said. I am done being the family afterthought. When you and the rest of the family are ready to treat me with the same respect you give my siblings, I will be open to rebuilding our relationship. Until then, I need distance. My mother's voice was smaller when she finally spoke. Naomi, I did not realize you felt this way. Because you never asked, I said. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. The flight back to Seattle felt different. Lighter, somehow. I watched the clouds drift past my window and thought about what came next. The first week was hard. My phone kept buzzing with messages from family members and I kept ignoring them. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me wondered if I had overreacted. But whenever those doubts crept in, I remembered the feeling of sitting at that tiny table, knees pressed against the underside, watching my family celebrate without me. No. I had not overreacted. I had finally reacted appropriately. During the second week, Marcus called. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Hey, he said. His voice was subdued, stripped of its usual confidence. What do you want, Marcus? To apologize? He paused. I should have said something last night. When Mom told you to sit at the kids' table when Dad did not mention you in his speech, I should have spoken up. I did not, and that was wrong. I let his words hang in the air. Why did you not? I asked. He sighed. I guess I was relieved it was not me. I have always felt this pressure from them to be perfect. When the focus shifted to you, I just let it happen. That is not an excuse. It is just the truth. It was more honesty than I had ever gotten from Marcus. Thank you for saying that, I said. During the 3rd week, Denise sent me a long email. She wrote about her own struggles with our parents' expectations, how she had rushed into marriage partly because she felt she had no choice, how she sometimes envied my freedom to live life on my own terms. Her email did not excuse her silence at the dinner, but it helped me understand that I was not the only one affected by our family's dysfunction. Tiffany remained silent. I did not expect an apology from her. She was still basking in the glow of newlywed approval. Maybe someday she would understand. Maybe not. My father called during the 4th week. His voice sounded older, tired. Son, he said, I have been thinking a lot since that night. I waited. I did not realize I had left you out of my speech until your mother pointed it out later. I was so caught up in saying the right things about everyone else that I forgot the obvious. He cleared his throat. But that is not an excuse. You are my son. I should have remembered you without being reminded. I am sorry. It was not a perfect apology. He did not acknowledge the deeper issue, but it was more than I expected. Thanks, Dad, I said. That means something. My mother was the last to reach out. It took her almost 6 weeks to call, and when she did, her voice was different. Softer. Less certain. I have been talking to your father, she said, and to Marcus and Denise. Everyone keeps telling me I need to apologize to you. And do you think they are right? A long pause. I think I have spent so long worrying about you finding a partner that I forgot to appreciate who you already are. She sniffled. You are a good man, Naomi. I should have told you that more. It was not everything I needed to hear, but it was a start. In the months that followed, I focused on myself in ways I never had before. I started seeing a therapist to work through years of accumulated family wounds. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. I took up new hobbies, rock climbing, cooking, photography. I learned to fill my life with things that brought me joy rather than waiting for my family's validation. The healing was not linear. Some days I felt strong and free. Other days, old wounds reopened and I struggled. But I kept moving forward. 3 months after that disastrous dinner, I agreed to meet my parents for coffee. Not a fancy restaurant. Not a family gathering. Just the 3 of us at a quiet cafe near my apartment in Seattle. They had flown out specifically for this conversation. We talked for 2 hours. They apologized again, more thoroughly this time. I told them how their treatment had affected me over the years. We did not solve everything in one conversation, but we built a foundation for something better. Before they left, my mother hugged me. It was the first genuine hug she had given me in years. I am proud of you, she whispered. Just as you are. I have learned something important through all of this. Your worth is not determined by your relationship status. It is not measured by how closely you follow the path someone else has laid out for you. Your worth comes from who you are, your character, your kindness, your resilience, your ability to stand up for yourself even when it is hard. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away quietly, not to cause drama or seek revenge, but to protect your own dignity. Sometimes leaving is the only way to make people see what they have been taking for granted. I do not know what the future holds for my relationship with my family. It will never be perfect, but it is healthier now than it has ever been. I set boundaries, and those boundaries are respected. I am no longer the forgotten one at the kids' table. I am Naomi, a complete person with or without a partner, and that is enough. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to walk away from a situation or a relationship to protect your self-worth? Have you ever set a boundary that changed everything? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. and your experiences might help someone else who is struggling with similar challenges. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you do not miss any future stories. Your support means the world to me and helps us continue bringing these stories to you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you walk away from this story remembering one thing. You deserve a seat at the table. Not the kids' table, not the back corner, but right there with everyone else. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.